Good afternoon and welcome back to my channel here at Chelsea's Calming Corner. So after discussing with a few family and friends, I decided that for my first video of official content, I'll be doing a 10-minute guided meditation and then moving on to a 20 to 30-minute discussion about coping skills. So to get started with the guided meditation piece, it's really important to make sure that you're in a quiet area where you won't be disturbed for the next 10 minutes. I'll give you a few moments to find that space. Next, I want you to make sure that you've found a comfortable position. So this position can be either seated or lying down. We want to make sure that however we're positioned, there's not any strain or tension building up in any of the muscles. So I'll give you a few moments to get relaxed. All right, now we're going to get into the meditation piece. I'm going to start on the 1 minute and 30-second mark, and we'll end on the 11-minute and 30-second mark. Okay, so now that we've found our quiet place and we have found our comfortable position, I want you to close your eyes. If you choose to do this guided meditation with your eyes open, I encourage you to focus on one spot in the room. Now I want us to focus on our breathing. We're going to be utilizing a lot of deep breathing during this meditation. With deep breathing, we're not just filling the lungs with air, we're filling the belly with air. This type of breathing is commonly called belly breathing and sometimes also referred to as diaphragmatic breathing. I'm also going to be making use of counts. So we'll breathe in for a few counts, hold for a few counts, and then release that breath for a few counts. We're going to do that a couple of times. The purpose of deep breathing and meditation and any type of relaxation activity is that it can help to calm the brain, reduce blood pressure, and also lower the heart rate. So we're going to begin by taking that deep breath in through the nose, holding, and then breathing out through the mouth. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Again, breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, breathe out, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Continue breathing in deeply, controlled, holding that breath, and then releasing. Another great thing about the utilization of deep breathing in meditation is that it helps as a focal point. So sometimes the mind wanders during meditation, but we can bring our focus back to our breathing and continue the relaxation process. For today's guided meditation, we're going to be creating a relaxing or peaceful scene in our minds. This type of meditation can sometimes be referred to as visual imagery, guided visualization. So I want you to focus on creating the layout of your relaxing, peaceful place. Is it indoors or is it outside in nature? What are some of the smells in your peaceful place? What are some of the sights or the things that you can see in your peaceful place? Is it daytime or is it nighttime in your peaceful place? Take a few moments to start envisioning some of these aspects of your peaceful place, while also making sure to continue breathing in deeply and releasing that breath. Let's add a few more details to our peaceful place. Are there any animals in your peaceful place? Are you alone or with friends and family? Who else is in your peaceful place? What does it feel like in your peaceful place? Is it cool or warm? Are you by the fireplace or basking in the sun? What are you doing in your peaceful place? As you're envisioning these things, make sure to continue breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth. Breathing in relaxation as you enjoy your peaceful place, and breathing out tension and negativity. Continue to enjoy your peaceful place and all of the beautiful things that it has to offer. As you're continuing to envision your peaceful place, I want you to focus on the feeling of relaxation and peace that you have right now. I want you to know that this feeling is achievable at any time, at any part of your day. Anytime that you're feeling stressed out or anxious, I want you to think back to this very moment. Continue to breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth, focusing on breathing in relaxation and breathing out any and all remaining tension. As you continue to enjoy your peaceful place, I want you to take a picture of this peaceful place in your mind. A quick snapshot of what you're doing, where you are, and how you're feeling. File this image away in your memory bank to make use of it the next time you need it. Continue now for the next few moments to enjoy your peaceful place. Continue breathing in and out. In and out. In these last few moments of enjoying our peaceful place, I just want you to remember that dealing with stress is normal. Everybody needs an opportunity to be able to take some time to themselves to calm down and de-stress. I hope that this meditation has been able to help you do so. As we end our guided meditation, you may slowly open your eyes, or you can choose to leave them closed. Stretch if you need to. Slowly start to wiggle your fingers and toes, waking up those muscles. Taking one final large breath in through your nose, holding for a few seconds, and then releasing that breath out through your mouth. And that's it. We have completed our 10-minute guided meditation. I'm going to take a short break and I'll be right back. All right, so I really do hope that you guys found that guided meditation to be helpful. Again, any comments or constructive criticisms that you guys may have, leave them in the comment section below. I'm so used to doing this for people live that having to record it and then post it, it's nerve-wracking. And like I said last week, I just kind of struggle sometimes with like that wanting things to be perfect versus just kind of like in person and being able to make corrections when most people normally wouldn't notice. So also have found great use for this little pause button when I'm recording videos. So jumping into our discussion on coping skills. So coping skills is something that I love talking about with my clients. Again, because we're going to have really big stressors and just events that happen in our lives that we have to try and figure out, how do I navigate this? But also we have like little daily stressors that we need to be able to tackle as well, because when we don't, the stress and tension from those, they tend to build up, right? And so what I found throughout the years is that a lot of people will just kind of stuff those things, I won't worry about it, I'll just stop thinking about it. If I don't think about it, it's not going to bother me. If I don't talk about it, it'll go away. But the reality of it is those things trigger us. And when they trigger us and we don't handle them effectively, that pressure just continues to build. And eventually we will explode. And so when we're thinking about coping skills, what we're talking about isn't just deep breathing or isn't just meditation, right? So coping skills is it's just a broader term for a lot of different activities and techniques that people use to help with emotional regulation, help with decompressing, and that really just kind of help us have a better outlook on life. So what I like to do when I'm discussing coping skills with my clients is I kind of break them down into different categories. So, you have your distractions. So these are the things we do to take our mind off of whatever is stressing us out, right? So some different positive distractions or healthy distractions might be exercise, could be cutting on some music, could be watching your favorite television show or movie, whatever the case may be. So again, with distractions, we are literally distracting the mind. Now, some things to keep in mind when it comes to distractions is that if we rely too heavily on distractions as our main form of coping, we often don't get things done that we need to get done, right? So, any other responsibilities that we might have, any other things that we need to be taking care of throughout the day, we may be getting to those later and later if we're continuing to distract ourselves. So we want to make sure that we are drawing the line between what's distraction and what turns into procrastination. Also, with that, sometimes if we are trying to distract ourselves too much, we don't end up handling the main issue, right? So if um, let's say my stressor is having a conversation with someone, then if I distract myself from the feelings that I'm having about, oh, I have to have this conversation, and just try to say, okay, I'll just watch some TV to get my mind off of this. But then if I end up watching too much TV, like that Law and Order binge-a-thon that they have on WeTV. Now I come back and it's several hours later, and now I've never had this conversation with this person, making appointments, right? So if I'm supposed to make an appointment, but I'm nervous about making that appointment, I go and distract myself for several hours at a time. Now the office is closed. So with distractions, they can be good for in the moment, kind of short term handling of the situation, but they don't always help us in the long run of solving whatever the issue or stressor is. So, again, distractions can be good, but just making sure that we're not relying on them too heavily. Um, Another form of coping skill, one that we just kind of did, is more grounding. So with grounding techniques, this can be your meditation. This can also be yoga or Pilates. This can be exercise as well. So with grounding techniques, we are finding our center that like in our body, right? So if you're someone who struggles again with racing thoughts, ruminating or obsessive thoughts, constantly thinking about things, and it distracts you from, again, handling what you need to be handling. With grounding techniques, we're taking that time and that space to ourselves to really focus on us. So, how I like to present it to my clients is if you spend a lot of time up here, grounding techniques help you come back to being in here. So another thing with grounding techniques is that they can help to reduce the physicality of anxiety. So one thing that I like to tell people to do, if you're really stressed out and let's say you're in public spaces, so if you have a lot of social anxiety and you're out somewhere and there's a lot of people around you can feel yourself getting very anxious. One thing I like to tell people to do is just press their hands together as tightly as they can. So you don't want to do this to the point that you're hurting yourself or anything like that. But again, you're kind of like tensing the muscles in your arms as well as your wrists, and you're really pressing the palms together as tightly as you can and then releasing. What that's going to do is bring your mind to the receptors and nerves in your fingers, in your fingertips especially. And so it gives your brain something to focus on that's within the body rather than focusing on everything that's happening externally of us. Another thing with grounding techniques, though, again, they're good for those moments where we feel really anxious. But sometimes, and my folks who disassociate know this very well, the brain kind of wants to not be in the body. And so if we're somewhere where we feel unsafe, if we have complex PTSD and we suffer from flashbacks, if you're in a moment where you're having a flashback and you kind of start to feel your brain doing that thing where it's like, okay, so we're not going to be in our body right now. Sometimes it's best to be there and then wait until you're somewhere or with people that you do feel safe with and then focus on the grounding piece. So again, this is going to be different for everybody in different situations, call for different things. So if you're mildly anxious and you feel like, okay, you know what, I need to take some deep breaths, I need to, press my palms together, things like that, do that. However, if you feel it's a very serious situation or it's something that a situation we're associating would be better for you in that moment, then do that. And like I said, wait until you're somewhere where you feel safe and then try to come back down to your center. Some other great grounding techniques that I like to tell people to use can be 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So this is utilizing the five senses to help us find our center. So it's 5 things that you see, 4 things that you can touch or feel, 3 things that you hear, 2 things that you smell, and 1 thing that you can taste. And so the idea is, again, you're focusing on where you are, what's going on around you, and lastly, how are you feeling? So that's the 2 things you can smell. 1 thing you can taste is what's going on with you. And so with the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, it's a great mindfulness technique that a lot of people like to use. I've used it before and I feel it helps. I've had clients tell me in the past that it's been very useful for them. It's also a distress tolerance technique that gets talked about a lot in DBT, which stands for dialectical behavioral therapy. So um, that's an option. And then progressive muscle relaxation. So with progressive muscle relaxation, which we'll definitely do a guided meditation on using that one. You're tensing different muscles in the body and then releasing that tension. So when you're tensing those muscles, you're restricting blood flow to the area. Once again, your mind is now focusing on that part of your body, like, hey, what's going on? And then you're releasing that tension. You're allowing blood flow back into the body. You're going to get, for most people, it's a warming sensation. For some people, it may feel like a tingling sensation. And again, you're going to be focusing on the deep breathing. So it's not just blood, but it's again that oxygen rich blood that's flowing back into the muscle area. So with progressive muscle relaxation, you can start from the head and go all the way to the tips of your toes. So you can start from the tips of your toes and go all the way to the top of your head, whichever you feel is important for you. Some people feel that they don't necessarily need to do the entire body. So if for you it's just tensing certain muscles and just those muscles and then releasing them, do that thing. Um, and then again, with exercise, we're getting the heart rate going. So now the brain's now focusing on, okay, well, what's going on inside of our chest? Why are we breathing so heavy? Why do our muscles feel strained? Why do they hurt? Whatever the case may be. So working out until you're fatigued, or just again, working out until you feel that you've distracted your brain enough from that anxiety inducing or anxiety provoking situation. So that's grounding. The next one that I like to go over with my clients is emotional release. So once again, when we're talking about coping skills, we're not just coping with what's going on, we're coping with how we feel about what's going on. So with the emotional release, we're finding healthy ways to express how we're feeling. For some people, that could be screaming into a pillow. If you're like me and you have plushes that abound, it's Detective Pikachu, you may scream into those. Some people say like they like to go into a closet and scream. If that is something that helps you, and it helps you feel calm afterwards, then absolutely. If you're someone who it's going to be more of an excitatory stimulus for you, I probably would not recommend screaming. Maybe cutting on a funny video and laughing. I'm someone who loves to use humor. I'm very much of the expression, if I don't laugh, I'll cry. And I don't necessarily prefer to cry. to get my emotions out, I prefer to laugh. So I'll find something that I know for a fact I will always laugh at, which really is anything Scooby-Doo related, for those of you who know me personally. It can be any of those things. Dancing is a great emotional release for a lot of people. Um, Singing, I'm someone, I can't carry a tune to save my life, but I do love to, just belt out some of my favorite songs in the car, in the shower, wherever you are. Some other forms of emotional release could be popping a balloon, could be popping bubble wrap, could be, um, again, could be crying for you if that's what you feel is needed. Now, I will say there have been times where I've been like, usually I would laugh right now, but I think I do need to cry. So in the instances that you're going to scream or you're going to cry, what I would recommend is also setting a time limit. Um, Again, just so that you can get it out without it becoming more of a distraction in that sense. So not spending too much time crying or screaming. All right, I'm back. I had to pause. My daddy was calling. So yes, again, setting time limits so that it doesn't become a distraction, and also so that you don't end up getting pulled into it for the entire day or for like half a day spent crying and screaming. You're going to feel pretty hoarse and also very dried out. So again, emotional release looks different for different people, and again, depending on the situation. Next category, self-love. Now, there's, for me, a difference between self-care and self-love, and I've talked about this with my clients as well, so I always like to leave it open to them. Like, I'll ask them the question, like, what do you think the difference is between self-love and self-care? And I've got a lot of different answers throughout the years. And so one thing that I've really held on to from one of my clients was they said, the biggest difference is that self-care is you doing things for yourself that you need to do, whereas self-love is doing things that you actually like doing. And so that is one of them, like, well, yeah, essentially. So when we're thinking of, again, self love, we're looking at what are the things that I can do for myself that I love doing that allow me to show compassion to myself. And so self-care may be taking a shower because, again, hygiene is really important for us as humans, literally for our physical health as well as emotional and mental health. Self-love might be, when I take that shower, I'm throwing in, maybe some shower fizzes or a bath bomb if I'm going to be taking a bath, right? So one is, this is the thing that I need to do. That's that self-care, and self-love is saying, well, this is how I can also pamper myself a little bit, treat yourself, as the saying goes. So with self-care or self-love, I'm sorry, with self-love, one of the barriers I see people run into is that sometimes they don't really feel like doing the self-love thing. And so kind of forcing themselves to do it makes them feel that it can't be as appreciated. And so, once again, it's up to you to gauge the situation and decide if self love is necessary in that moment. If it's not, definitely don't force yourself to do it. Also, sometimes people can go a little bit overboard with the self love. So, self love does not have to be expensive. It does not mean you have to go on a $300 shopping spree in Sephora. I've done that once. But I had the means to when I did it. So that's why I did it. I've also been in situations where I've been like, ooh, yeah, $300 shopping spree to Sephora probably isn't the best idea. So instead, I'm going to buy my favorite ice cream, or maybe I'll go and get like a bath bomb from Walmart rather than ordering one from Lush, right? So self-love does not have to be expensive by any means. It can be cooking your favorite meal. It could be buying like your favorite hand cream, or maybe again renting your favorite movie if you don't own it, right? So a little bit of that positive distraction, emotional release, and self-love at the same time. So it can be however you'd like to treat yourself, taking yourself out to dinner or to see a movie, or both. um, it can be spending time with other people, right? So if you've been in that state of secluding and withdrawing, isolating yourself from others, but you're like me and you're an extrovert and you really do love being around other people, or even if you're an introvert and you understand the importance of having social interactions, being with other people can also be a form of you showing yourself some love. So with self-love, we are, kind of just reminding ourselves that we have value as individuals, and we're doing things to show ourselves the same compassion and empathy that we often show literally everybody else. I know there are a couple of you that are going to be watching this video like, wow, calling me out much. Yeah, I am. So, with self love, once again, showing ourselves compassion. Again, if we're doing it too much, we may feel that it's not as precious to us. So, just keep that in mind. The next one, now this is the one that honestly takes up a big bulk of the time when I do have the discussion about coping skills, is the idea of affirming ourselves and challenging cognitive distortions. Now, a lot of you may not be aware of what cognitive distortions are, so this is again why it takes up the bulk of the conversation, because you have to go in and break this one down into itty bitty pieces. So, cognitive distortions are sometimes also referred to as automatic negative thoughts or thinking patterns. And so, what they are, it's the way in which the brain lies to us about ourselves. So, you may have had experiences, and some common ones that I've had people kind of give me as like their cognitive distortion is, no one likes me, or the idea that my friends don't actually like me. They just kind of put up with me because I'm here type thing. And so, with that, what's happening is, again, it could be anxiety, it could be depression, it could be what we call scripts, right? So, scripts are things or messages that are fed to us. And this could be by caretakers, this could be by bullies, people around us, this could be by the types of media that we consume. So, with these scripts and with this depression and anxiety, all of these things start to create kind of just like a track, right? And so it's this track that plays over and over and over in our minds. It's a broken record essentially. And it's doing nothing but feeding us negative messages about ourselves. And so with those, we start to believe them, right? So if you tell someone something enough times, sometimes they will start to believe you, especially if they're not given any evidence to suggest that it's not true. And so we start to create these untruths about ourselves that we then believe. So with challenging these, what we're doing is we're looking for ways or evidence really, again, that disproves or goes against that thought. So my friends don't like me, right? That's the example that we're going with. My friends don't like me, they just put up with me, but really they think I'm annoying. So what we're now doing is we have to look for evidence that disputes those thoughts. So it could be, well, if my friends really didn't like me, they wouldn't invite me places, right? So if I have my friends have invited me to go out with them or to go on trips, to do these different things, then that could be my objective evidence that that thought isn't really true. Now, there's several different types of activities and techniques that we use in CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy, that help people kind of break these thoughts down. One is Socratic questioning, another is putting thoughts on trial. So, with both activities, once again, we're looking for evidence that disputes the thought, evidence that supports the thought, right? So, if I find more evidence that supports the thought, then I have evidence that disputes it, I might be able to say, okay, so hey, this thought might actually be true. If I find myself in that situation, what I need to do moving forward is looking at, well, what are some of the behaviors or things that I feel need to change in order for me to not feel this way about myself? That's a whole nother discussion though. So before I get ahead of myself and get sidetracked, when we're looking at, finding the evidence that disputes it and then saying, okay, so I can decide that this thought that I'm having about myself, that my friends don't really like me, is not necessarily true, right? So now, what I need to do in order to move forward and be able to continue disproving that thought is by coming up with some affirmations. Now, I'm sure most of us have heard of, daily affirmations, positive affirmations. These are things that we can say either about ourselves, the world around us, our connection to a higher power, our connection to something bigger than ourselves. It can be any of those things. And I'm going to pause again because my laptop's trying to die on me. All right, that's better. So again, with affirmations, sometimes people will tell me, well, it's not just that easy. It's not that easy just thinking positive, right? Granted, I know this, trust me, I know. And so the idea of using affirmations to fight cognitive distortions or automatic negative thinking, what we're doing is the affirmations that we're creating are now based on the evidence that we have found that disputes the thought. All right, so follow me here. So again, if the automatic negative thought or cognitive distortion is that no one likes me, my friends don't like me, right? But our evidence is that, well, my friends invite me to go on trips, they invite me to go on outings, and we have a lot of fun together, then that I can turn that into an affirmation of my friends love me because my friends invite me to places. My friends like me because they invite me to do things. So it's taking that objective evidence and then turning it into an affirmation. Sometimes we may even need a little bit of assurance, right? So don't be afraid to ask your friends, like, hey, what do you guys like about me? I've done it. You can ask my friends, like I've asked them, like, do you guys think I'm funny? Because I think I'm funny. Do you guys think I'm funny? And just getting that assurance of, yes, you're a funny person or you can be humorous at times, I can then turn that around into an affirmation of, I'm a funny person. And I know I'm a funny person because I've gotten that evidence from other people. Um, Again, that evidence being that for me it's objective because it's not coming from my own head, right? So my own feelings about the situation would be subjective. Even though the evidence I'm getting is subjective on the parts of other people, because it's external of me, it can still be objective for me. So I'm going to ask my friends if they find me funny, and my friends will say yes. And so then there's my evidence that I am funny or I can be funny. And so turn those into affirmations. So again, affirming and dismantling or deconstructing cognitive distortions and automatic negative thoughts. And this is really important in terms of coping skills because, again, if we're stressed out about a particular thing, if we have those negative scripts, those negative automatic thoughts telling us about our own abilities to handle certain situations or to overcome certain obstacles and barriers, then we kind of get into a pattern of either self destructive behaviors or self defeating behaviors. And so, in order to cope with disappointments and stressors, we can use affirmations in that sense to kind of bolster our own self-esteem and self-efficacy and reminding us that we are capable of doing these different things. See? Do you see how that? You can rewind that a couple of times, but that's again one of the biggest things when I talk to my clients about coping skills, is using affirmations, why we use affirmations, and then going through that whole spiel. Again, that's the one that takes the most amount. Is there a fly in here? I heard something buzz by. There's probably a fly in here. Anyways, oh yeah, I just saw him. Okay, so moving on, squirrel. Moving on to the last category. I think I've gone through them. Distractions, grounding, emotional release, self-love, affirming. Yeah. And so lastly, accessing our higher self. So with accessing our higher self, we are essentially engaging in any type of activity that helps us feel good about life and living, and then also reminds us that everyone has value. So again, with self-love, it's focusing on the self as having value. With accessing higher self, we're focusing on others outside of us also having value. So some of these activities could include volunteering, um, whether it be with a larger organization, could be with a specific entity. It could be just doing acts of charity or random acts of kindness, helping someone with their groceries, helping a neighbor with their lawn. With everything that we have going on right now, everything that we have going on right now, um, a little bit goes a long way for a lot of different people. So if you have any neighbors or friends who are immunocompromised and can't necessarily or don't necessarily feel safe with leaving their house, you could, volunteer or, ask them if they need help with getting groceries. If you like animals, could be volunteering with the ASPCA. If you love being outdoors in nature, could be volunteering with different environmental groups in your area and helping to pick up trash and litter. So even if you don't necessarily want to be around other people, like that would be a great opportunity to do that, right? Um, could be once again spending time with family and friends. So if you're someone who you're very family centered and a lot of your values lie centrally to your connection to other people, whether that be familial ties or again just platonic friendships or even intimate relationships, then absolutely spending time with those people, making memories, that could be something that you're doing during this time. So accessing your higher self doesn't have to be these great feats. Again, they can be small, they can be local to your community, they could be on a statewide or maybe even a national level. Just whatever you feel you have the time and energy for. Which brings me to, kind of the obstacles and some of the barriers to people being able to access higher self is that sometimes they end up putting themselves on the back burner. Talking to you, people who love to proclaim to be empaths, you need to still make sure that you are taking time to take care of yourself. So this is where the self-care piece comes in. So again, we talked earlier about self-love. Now, when we're talking about accessing higher self, we also want to make sure that we're still doing what we need to for ourselves. Um, so often I've seen people go into crisis situations because they were so focused on helping everyone else around them that they were not focusing on taking care of themselves. So just keep that in mind wherever you are in, your day-to-day life. If you are on the verge of burnout, you don't really need to be focusing on other people.
Again, I'm not going to prescribe to you what you should be doing in terms of accessing higher self, but I will tell you, if you are on the edge of burnout, you do not need to focus on helping everybody else. Because you can't make everybody happy. That's number one. You can't make everybody happy. Um, and so trying to do so is going to put you in a very, very, very sticky situation. So, again, accessing higher self, doing what you can for those around you, but not doing so much that you end up neglecting your own self care responsibilities and duties. Okay? Okay. So, some other examples of accessing higher self could be prayer, could be taking walks out in nature. One thing that I like to tell people to do if they like being in nature and they like going for walks is to go for a gratitude walk. And so, literally, the entire time that you're taking your walk, you're thinking of things that you are grateful for or thankful for. And so, again, the idea is to kind of reposition the mind to not necessarily focus on the negatives, right? Because it's so easy to focus on the negatives and what's not going right in our lives. And so sometimes we often do forget to appreciate the things that we do have. And that's not to say that you're being ungrateful if you don't, just saying that, again, it's really, really easy to focus on the negatives. So that is my discussion on coping skills. Once again, there are so many different things that we can be doing in terms of coping skills and being able to manage our daily stressors. The biggest thing is just making sure that you are taking time to do evaluations. So it can be at the beginning of your day, and sometimes it can even be at the end of your day before you're going, when you're going to lay down for bed, to just take personal inventory of how you're feeling. And deciding, yeah, like this week I've been pretty stressed out, or this week I've been really overwhelmed and I'm running out of energy. And so deciding what are the skills or techniques that you're going to use to help you recover and recuperate. Um, and so with coping skills, the idea is to have just, I like to tell people, have one or two activities or things that you do from each of the categories that I've talked about today. So having two positive distractions, having two grounding techniques, two things that you do for emotional release, two self-love things that you engage in, two affirmations about yourself, and two ways that you can access your higher self. Because when we have those different things, it's kind of like a toolbox essentially, right? So you create this toolbox, or your spice rack of coping skills, whatever metaphor you'd like to use for them. And so that way, when you have these different situations that can trigger different emotions or different reactions in us, that we have ways that we can navigate those situations, because each one's going to be different. And I can't just binge watch Law and Order SVU or Scooby Doo to make all of my troubles go away, right? And so I hope that from this discussion, you've gained kind of like an idea of the different kinds of coping skills, and maybe even also recognized some ways in which you, or some areas in your life in which you can incorporate different types of skills and activities that help you navigate these things better. All right, so I'm gonna end it there. I actually think I went over the 30-minute mark for our discussion on coping skills. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. Share this video if you want with family and friends who you think might also be struggling with using coping skills. And I'll try to be back next week. So last week and then this week. So I think this video was 6 days after the first one I posted. So I'm gonna try to post one video every week. Again, they may be different from time to time. Maybe next week it'll just be meditation. Maybe next week it'll just be discussion. It could also, once again, be a mixture of meditation and discussion. Um, as I really get the hang of recording content, editing it if I feel I need to, and then posting it, I'll continue to give you guys those updates. So, again, hope you enjoyed the meditation. Hope that this discussion was helpful for you. And again, leave me anything that you feel I need to know where I can make this channel a little bit better, or can make the content a little bit more relatable for you guys. All right, and with that, I'm gonna end this video. Peace.